to break the grip of corruption and black money, we have decided
This is Prime Minister Narendra Modi announcing demonetization in 2016.
that the 500 rupee and 1000 rupee currency notes will no longer be legal tender.
Now this doesn't mean that Prime Minister Modi has done a cameo in my video. I wish he could, but this is just a clip of a public announcement available for anyone to use. So if anyone tells you that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has done a cameo in Dhurandhar Part 2, or if they ask why his name was Narendra Modi and not Virendra Modi, refer them to my video. Because the answer to that question is the same as to why Madhavan's character was named Ajay Sanyal and not Ajit Doval.
You're goddamn right.
And just like that announcement which made the 500 and 1000 rupee notes invalid at that time, Aditya Dhar with Dhurandhar Part 2 has changed Indian cinema forever. Whether it be storytelling, action sequences or pre-release strategy, so many movies will now have to go back to the drawing board to assess the damage because as of now, they are all irrelevant.
Biggest problem I feel for the pan-India films now, all their action things are templated in a certain format which Dhurandhar broke.
Let me share another similarity. Remember the post-credit scene in Animal, the one with Aziz. That entire scene was Sandeep Reddy Vanga's reply to his critics from Kabir Singh. Listen to this.
We look forward to seeing what you do next. Hopefully it will generate less criticism.
It will be more. It will be more because these guys are calling this film as a violent film. I'll show them what violent film will be.
And when Aditya Dhar says this,
Ladies and gentlemen, you are still not ready for this.
that is a direct reply to all his critics.
So people who label it as propaganda, I don't care about them. It is as simple as that. And I feel it's the propaganda in their head which is making them look at this film as propaganda.
Because frankly, all this negativity is basically indhan to the fire Dhurandhar Part 2 has started.
कि अब इंडियन सिनेमा का मुस्तकबिल धुरंधर द रिवेंज तय करेगा.
This is why I want to revisit Dhurandhar Part 2 after giving it a second watch, and this time with lots and lots of spoilers. So if you haven't watched Dhurandhar Part 2, please pause this video, watch the movie and come back and watch this video. For a non-spoiler opinion, you can check my video review of Dhurandhar Part 2 here, and the link is in the description as well. For those still watching, in this video I'll deep dive into some thematic decisions, what makes Part 2 different from Part 1, the Rehman vs Iqbal debate, the Jameel Jamali spy angle, and whether there could be a future Part 3.
But that's simply not possible.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid?
To keep the video focused on cinematic discussions, I will cover other topics like music, propaganda, peak detailing for a future video. Lots of interesting debates are happening, so let's keep an eye on that. And for now, let's start with the first chapter, the themes. Now in my review, I have already discussed revenge as the core theme of Part 2, with espionage raging alongside. But one theme is hidden in the subtext, which is karma. The movie starts by referencing the Bhagavad Gita's chapter 2 verse 47. This is an extremely popular verse of the Bhagavad Gita and often quoted whenever the topic of karma yoga is discussed. The verse gives 4 instructions regarding the science of work and offers deep insight into the proper spirit of work. And let's see how these connect with Dhurandhar Part 2. First instruction, you have the right to perform your duties. This directly comes through in the scene when Ajay Sanyal meets Jaskirat for the first time and says to him that we are men, that it is our duty to fight. Whether it be for freedom, for our own, it is the sole duty to fight till the final breath. When Yelena confronts Hamza, he tells her everything about his motives and mentions that even after knowing all this, you can turn me in and tell the world about my true identity. But I won't stop because it is my right to perform my duty towards protecting my country. Second instruction, the fruits of your actions are not for your enjoyment. In the same scene, when Ajay Sanyal meets Jaskirat for the first time, along with saying that we are men and that it's our duty to fight, he clearly underlines that while performing these duties, we are not awarded any medals or accolades, and one must remember that we are not the enjoyers of the results. The same goes with Jaskirat. After his mission is over, he cannot be with Yelena and Zayan. Because if you have seen other spy movies or TV shows, there is a saying that there is always someone watching. So many criminals worldwide have been caught because of their familial ties, and Yelena and Zayan will always be under surveillance, knowing that Jaskirat cannot be with them. Jameel also emphasizes that point, saying that Hamza should forget them because that's for everyone's good. The third instruction, never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities. Hamza is an undercover Indian agent in Pakistan. His manipulations are shaping the politics of Layari, eventually making him the king of Karachi. But it's not all his doing. Ajay Sanyal and his team are using that intel to make changes in the Indian ecosystem. Jameel is using his influence, knowing that Hamza is a spy, first to remain unaware of what's happening, and secondly to provide Hamza with all the tools to keep moving forward, whether it's trapping Arshad Pappu in his milk factory or suggesting to Zarwari that he should issue an arrest warrant for Uzair.
और एक बात याद रखियो, इस पूरी लयारी में मेरा खून बोलता है.
And lastly, do not be attached to the inaction. The nature of the living being is to work. Often situations arise where work seems burdensome and confusing. In such cases, instead of running away from it, we must understand and implement the proper science of work, something which Alam demonstrates in the post-interval scene. Hamza doesn't know what to do. He's confused how to handle what happened, but Alam applies the learning, Balidan Parmo Dharma, tells him to continue the fight because one of them will definitely be caught. It's his sacrifice which demonstrates a proper process of work.
ये खेल हम जीतने के लिए खेल रहे हैं और इस खेल में जीतने के लिए सबसे जरूरी है हमारा जिंदा रहना.
The reason I cite these examples is to show how subtext is written into a screenplay, the implicit unspoken meaning beneath the literal dialogue and actions of characters. And if you dig deeper, you will find many more examples like this in the movie.
रो क्यों रहा है लाले? तूने सुना नहीं? जहाँ दर्द है, वहाँ मर्द है.
Moving on to the aspect that separates part 2 from part 1, emotional resonance.
घायल हूँ, इसलिए घातक हूँ.
As I said in my movie review, Dhurandhar parts 1 and 2 are technically one film. They were shot together but released in 2 parts, which is why many of the dots from the first part connect with the second, like revenge. Dhurandhar part 2 is all about revenge. Jaskirat's backstory and Hamza's dismantling of the terror network is built on this strong emotion, and it actually stems from Ajay Sanyal ever since the IC-814 Kandahar hijack. Now, if you look at how revenge is traditionally handled in Indian cinema, it's usually loud. It's angry monologues, it's screaming at the heavens, it's a hero single-handedly taking down 50 guys with a metal pipe. But Aditya Dhar gives us a cold revenge, a methodical, slow-burning retribution that takes years to execute, and it starts with Madhavan's character Ajay Sanyal.
पड़ोस में रहते हैं हम. कूदे भर का जोर लगा लो और बिगाड़ लो जो बिगाड़ सकते हो.
The baggage of the IC-814 hijack is the absolute bedrock of his character. Back in 1999, he had to stand down, he had to watch the system compromise and let the bad guys walk away. That deep-rooted helplessness, that's the seed for everything that happens in Dhurandhar Part 2.
We must infiltrate the very core of Pakistan, ताकि वो भारत के खिलाफ अगर नींद में भी सोचे ना, तो उनके ख्वाब में भी हम बैठे नजर आने चाहिए.
Sanyal takes that unresolved trauma and channels it into creating
Dhurandhar.
And Jaskirat is his Babbar Sher, a patriot following orders in Sanyal's proxy war. And that belief of Sanyal is detailed in Chapter 1, A Burnt Memory, which is the best action set piece in recent times. How it moves from one room to another, how the brutality is magnified in each fight, and when Ranveer gets up amidst the background of the circling firecracker, it was a brilliant cinematic shot. And the scene transitions to the room where Jaskirat's sister is held captive. The emotion doesn't stop. It's a moment in the movie where tears don't stop. No dialogue, no loud background music. It's just a connection between the two characters. There are other moments in Jaskirat's backstory, like when his friend sees him off before the rampage begins. It hits you hard. If Ranveer is nominated for an award for Dhurandhar Part 2, there should be 2 nominations, one as Jaskirat and one as Hamza. That was the level of impact Jaskirat left in the movie. There are many other scenes where the emotional stakes are challenged. One where Alam sacrifices himself and Hamza is the one to kill him. It is an extremely gut-wrenching shot. Alam is the one who is alongside Hamza from day one, keeps helping him using his network, and throughout the movie, we are not told about where he is from. 2 times Hamza asks him about his home, and finally, before his death, he tells him that he was a pickpocket from Bareilly. This is immediately followed by the scene where he is disclosing to Yelena about what his real motive in Pakistan is. As an audience, you can feel his vulnerability. From Yelena's point of view, she is right. At the first glance, he is an enemy of her country. But after careful introspection, she accepts to keep Hamza's identity a secret. There, it is still Hamza's revenge as the fuel for his actions, but on the contrary, it is Yelena's. The third moment was the ending. The Fir Se song, Arijit Singh's voice and soulful music amplifies the entire sequence. There are multiple ways you can interpret the ending. One realizes that his family has accepted the loss of Jaskirat and moved on. He sees his mother and sister happy, he sees his nephews happy, and realizes that maybe it all remains the same. The other is that he realizes that he is still a wanted criminal who is on death row. So going back to his family will lead to questions which could lead to conviction. Why can't he go back to Sanyal? Because Espionage 101. Why would a spy agency accept the existence of an agent who decided to go on the loose on his own terms? Does Hamza go and be with Elena and his son, or is he taken back as an Indian spy? Is there another mission? I will talk about that later in the video. Before I move on to the next chapter, let me share with you info about a new channel I've started, dedicated to Hollywood movies and TV shows. I will be releasing one video every weekend, so please subscribe if you are interested in that kind of content. Moving on, the antagonist angle, and this has to be one of the biggest complaints from the reviews online, other than the music, which I hope to cover in a different video. The criticism for the music is already on the same lines. The Didi track from Ranveer Singh's Sher-e-Baloch ceremony is no match to the Filparachi of Akshaye Khanna. And you have understood that Aditya could have done what most directors would have done, given an aura to Ranveer's dance step. But that's Aditya Dhar. The story demanded a different reaction. But for now, let's talk about the antagonist.
खुदा कसम, अब एक और हिंदुस्तानी सर काट कर मुरीद के मीनार से लटकाऊंगा.
Part 1 featured Rehman Dakait, and there is a comparison between Akshaye Khanna's Rehman and Arjun Rampal's Major Iqbal, with the latter said just not to have the same vibe. Look, I get it. When it comes to the antagonist, my issue with this complaint is that it completely ignores the context of who these two characters actually are. Rehman Dakait is the apex predator, a local gangster, a pawn in a game of chess. Because of that localized underworld setting, the story could absolutely afford to give him those high cheer-worthy moments. If he gets hold of someone, he won't torture them, he will simply finish them off. Woo! We all remember the Filparachi sequence, the Lut Gaya moments. That dominating demeanor had very induced pure panic. Our hero in part 1 was largely submissive to him for a good chunk of the runtime. Rehman had all those aura-forming scenes because narratively he was allowed to be flamboyant. For many in the audience, Rehman wasn't even a deep ideological antagonist. He was just a massive, incredibly stylish roadblock the hero had to get past. Now cut to part 2. By this time we have already seen the brutality of Arjun Rampal's Major Iqbal, his limited but effective screen time in part 1. And it's very clear to us that we aren't dealing with a street-level gangster. We are dealing with a high-ranking ISI officer who has an abusive father and a child with special needs at home. You cannot give aura-farming scenes to a menacing ISI agent. He is described as the angel of death. His methods involve torture followed by slow death. You can't give him a swaggering entry with a catchy rap track in the background because it fundamentally breaks the grounded espionage reality that Aditya Dhar has built here. You don't want the audience hooting and cheering for a guy orchestrating systematic terror. Precisely why you see Rehman dancing in Hamza's wedding, but Iqbal in the background, unfettered by the proceedings. And even in part 2, in the scene where Hamza's childhood friend Pinda asks Iqbal to party along, Iqbal is shown as traveling to Islamabad for urgent work. Rehman was loud, flashy, and owned the room through sheer intimidation. Major Iqbal is cold, calculating, and operates from the shadows. His menace doesn't come from shouting down the hero, it comes from holding the strings to a massive, deadly network. If Aditya Dhar had tried to make Iqbal another Rehman, it would have ruined the gritty, realistic tone of part 2. The threat had to evolve, and Arjun Rampal played that silent, looming menace perfectly. Also, I think it from this angle as well. In the scene where Omar finds out about Hamza's identity through Yelena, imagine if Iqbal were in place of Omar. Do you really think he would have allowed Yelena and her son to live? No, absolutely not. And that alone is the proof of his cold, calm brutality. The scene where he kills his father, it comes after a series of insults. It comes from a deep-rooted pain and his own personal ambition to pick up the remnants of a country and rebuild it in the right way. So before we write off Major Iqbal because he didn't get a catchy background score or a different level of brutality, we need to appreciate the screenwriting choice of creating a villain who represents an institution rather than just an individual, bringing us to the biggest surprise of Dhurandhar Part 2, the Jameel Jamali angle. Now believe me, all throughout the movie, I was wondering when the Knight Rider theme would come. Not this one, this one. And when we see Jameel Jamali in the car and the Knight Rider theme playing, it was a damn good moment, and because everything happened so fast from there on, it took me a while to connect all the dots. We first meet Jameel when he comes to visit Rehman in the hospital after his son's death. He's funny, he's manipulative, and Hamza realizes very quickly that he's not someone to be trusted. At that point, Jameel actually knows that Hamza is a spy. He gives a curious look that we all miss. The second time we see his spy influence is when he's plotting to get rid of Rehman. Now, one reason is that he wants to keep his political influence intact, and Rehman, with his new party, threatens that dominance. The second reason is that knowing that Rehman colluded with Iqbal to fund atrocities against India, he found a way to get rid of Rehman, which Hamza led to failure. He never wanted his daughter to marry Hamza because he knew the risks, but seeing that he couldn't reveal his identity, he had no choice but to play along. Jameel kept Bade Saab alive for the same reason. A caught spy or a criminal is kept alive for years to try and get as much information as possible. That 60,000 crores information came from Bade Saab. The link with Atiq Ahmed was revealed in that meeting, so keeping him alive is a way to get deeper into the criminal network. It's also natural to assume that a spy is not necessarily a combat operative. They can be a juice shop owner like Alam or a high-ranking politician like Jameel. Now, when you look at part 1 and part 2 together, you get the Jameel spy angle. As per Jameel, he was sent 45 years back to rise in the political ranks of Pakistan. And he is the one who must have told Sanyal about how the Layari underworld is making weapons to fund wars and attacks across the world. And maybe he was the one who asked for someone to infiltrate these gangs, wherein Hamza comes in. At every point, Aditya Dhar wrote Jameel's character sketch, keeping in mind that he is a spy, one who can reveal his identity only in the most dire situations. Bringing us to the cliffhanger. Will there or should there be a Dhurandhar Part 3? Now, there are unconfirmed reports that Jio Studios is asking Aditya Dhar to make a Part 3 and maybe a Part 4 as well. And it would be great if Aditya Dhar makes future parts of this. The stories of unknown gunmen have not only been in Pakistan but also in other countries like Canada, the same country whose tickets Hamza gives to Yelena. Remember, he mentions Vancouver, Canada. So it's likely that Hamza goes to Canada to be with his family and the unknown gunmen saga continues. Before leaving Pakistan, Hamza gives the diary to Rizwan, who now takes up the journey forward. But personally, I feel Aditya Dhar should take a break from Dhurandhar, make something new, maybe even go back to the immortal Ashwathama and then come back to Dhurandhar. Could it be Ranveer Singh again? Why not? On the flip side, a new actor and a new mission would be an interesting choice as well for the audience to see. So should there be a Dhurandhar 3? Absolutely, but maybe 4 to 5 years from now. Will there be a Dhurandhar 3? That is for Aditya Dhar to decide.
Get ready!
That brings us to the end of this video, but there are still a lot more topics to explore. Dhurandhar is such a dense movie that each frame tells a story. We have stuff like the music, the propaganda debate, the peak detailing of Aditya Dhar left to discuss. So please subscribe if you want to stay up to date. What topic would you like to see me cover in future Dhurandhar videos? Let me know in the comments below. And if you are interested in watching more, check out a video about the Khans in the new generation in Bollywood right here. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.